Hello, everyone. Thought good self, and I felt like I was seeing a few things that, in retrospect, turned out to be correct. And it was funny because I was talking to a friend while I did it, and he said, "You never trade this much in a day. You never scalp." And so, today I really did feel like I could kind of see things a little better, just because just able to dedicate more time to it in the last couple days. So, what I'm going to do, and I should also say, by the way, this is the markets are closing in about 1 minute. So this is the trading day on Thursday, August 27th, 2020. But what would be really nice is if I could go back in time and show you a replay of what happened today. But because I can't, I don't know if Sierra chart has it. Maybe it does, but I don't know how, and I'm not going to waste time looking. So I'll go through a quick overview of what I saw today, what I saw coming out of the gate, what I saw coming into today, and then just briefly talk about how and why I traded it the way I did. It's, as I said, it's easier to see after the fact, but my hope is that continuing to learn to look at these in pieces will provide, a blueprint or a layout for how to trade this in the future. And that's one of the things it's one of the, the high value pieces of spending time at the screen watching the day develop, provides. So one of the things I'll also, one of the things I'll note throughout this is poor structure that I saw. And that was one of the things that gave me ultimately confidence to trade today. So in the morning session, so this morning, just before market open, I was tweeting that oftentimes you can get an idea of what long-term traders are doing, and you get a sense of their posturing leading into the market. So that was one of the things that I was watching early on today. It was just this move in X period. This was right before market open this morning. Additionally, overnight, price remained at or above yesterday's point of control. So I thought that was interesting because yesterday was a really interesting, poorly structured day because it really was a trend day that shot up but left single prints. We had a buying tail here, left single prints here, left one single print there, ultimately closed the day up here. But point of control was here around about 34.70, maybe high 60s, and overnight price never got below that. Additionally, you'll see that at this point of control, buyers stepped in here. They stepped in when price came down here. They stepped in down here, spent a little more time here. And then today's pre-market launch period also happened at the point of control. So that's typically seen just as like a very visual place to be buying here and here. That's so it's poor mechanical structure because that's just a visual site that, typically like short-term traders will use those visuals to make their calls. And so that's considered poor mechanics or weak. So going into today, and that's this profile here. At the open period, so I'm going to break these letters back out and then put these back into their TPO. So in the open period, we opened here at this A. And this was a gap up from yesterday. So that was something to note. There's ways of playing this, but for now, just something to note that we gapped up. Initially, when we gapped up here, we opened here, price did come back down into overnight's point of control, still above yesterday's point of control. But it tested here and then shot all the way up here. And then the thing that I'll notice too, or that I noted early on in one of my tweets this morning, was that we had a really wide initial balance range, and that's something that you get just by looking at previous days or spending time doing this. Then during the B period, though, we had an inside rotation, and that's what led me to believe that we were going into this balance day. What this would indicate to you is that while there was strong early, conviction on the part of the buyers, and it brought us up to all-time highs, ultimately, because the B period rotated back down and stayed within, this indicated that there's not really strong conviction. And so for that reason, I concluded that we're in a balanced day. And so my thinking, after A and then, reaffirmed after B period was that we're in a balanced day, and the strategy is always to, play that mean reversion strategy. And this is something that these are all things that I got from that tear sheet that I've got on my website, and something that you can find in my profile. But all of those are in that, all of that information is in that sheet. And so that's something that, to keep handy at your desk can give you this information right off the bat. So my play during C session, once we briefly extended over the initial balance range, was to go short. What happened today was that C, D, and E period, some of these momentum sellers tried to get us outside of the balance range, but given what I knew coming into this about, from that sheet that I just mentioned, I did not have strong conviction that these were going to be buyers that were taking us much higher. And ultimately, I assumed this was not going to be a trend day. So during the C period is where I first started going short today. I actually got in around 95, and I went down to, at the time, I think the point of control was like at 44. I don't recall. Maybe it was 88. I'm sorry, 84 or 88. I don't recall. But, I got around 8-10 points. And so that was the first reason I did that. And again, I was taking into account coming into this, there's a lot of poor structure in this market, and so I didn't think that we had a really strong launch point to begin with. When I shorted, I got out because we went down to the point of control, but I think perhaps if I was a little more savvy, I may have monitored this for continuation all the way down here. But going on to what did happen all the way here, we after the D and E period, we really failed to break out to the upside. And so one of the things that happened, you'll see in C period and E period, was that buyers stepped back in at today's open price. And this was not so far away from yesterday's high price either. And so these continue to be and appear like weak buyers. And so eventually, when we were able to get past this barrier here, so let's say F is down, matches very closely with yesterday's high, and E matches very closely with today's open. Once we traded through that, there was a liquidation break down to G period and a quick move right back up. So you'll notice a couple things about this break is that we still held some of these single prints I mentioned. More or less held this point of control from yesterday. It did dip, about 6 points below, maybe 5 or 6 points below. So that's just some trading down there. But when we bought back up here, left very little excess in this G period. So again, this is just poor structure that I'm continuing to see in this market. So finally, going to the I and J period again, or for the first time rather. So the I period, after we came in with this low and we saw that buyers stepped back in and defended some of these single prints and defended stayed within yesterday's range without, probing any further down into it. The buyers, you'll notice, stepped in almost exactly at a couple different places. So one of those places was at the point of control yesterday. But if we're looking at really after this recovery was made here, if we look at where this rally was mounted, it started at the overnight point of control. And it's almost exactly there. So that was an interesting, thing to carry forward too. And just a continual, it's a continual theme that we're seeing poor structure in this market because we've had gaps, we've had, these single prints, we've had multiple distributions on yesterday. And so these are all, things to take into account when you're assessing the state of the market. So quickly before I go, I just wanted to go over why I did some of these trades I did. And so ultimately today I took 2 shorts from up in this area down to about this area. And at one point, I don't remember when, I went long somewhere down in here and got a few points of it. Again, I'm still learning too, and the trade execution strategy is a different, side of this because I've done a lot of the studying of this, but trade execution is another thing. And so that's something that I'm continuing to practice. But today I thought was a good, safe strategy day just because of all the points that I gave. But to summarize what gave me confidence doing these trades, I wrote down here that poor structure all throughout, going all the way back to the poor high overnight, going, back to yesterday with these multiple distributions in the profile. it ultimately made me think that the launching point for this has not been very strong. Today, from my tear sheet again, I looked at the wide initial balance range. And usually when you're using that and you recognize that there's a balance day, you just use that, when you're at an extreme, go short, go long, and, play it to go back to the point of control. One of the other things in my sheet that I'll mention is that, and this goes back to what happened pre-market this morning, is during this X period though, is that oftentimes, markets are looking for something to move them. Buyers are looking for something to make them confident, or vice versa with shorts. And there was a lot of talk overnight about the Fed statement. It was something that we had the text of yesterday, but I believe the statement was made this morning. And so these are just, I saw a number of tweets this morning talking about it too. So perhaps something that got short-term buyers really excited and sent them up. And also I was looking at the fact that we were holding these single prints from yesterday, which gave me a little more confidence when today we bounced off the low and came up through here. And you can see right now, market closed about 10 minutes ago from when I started this video, and we are roughly back at where we began the day, where the point of control is, and not too much higher up from yesterday, but the market continues to look bullish to me. So yeah, so I think, being able to look at these sessions as they develop is going to help, every trader, because you start to look at each 30-minute period as its own auction. And these rotations really provide a clue. But today you could have gotten a number of really good trades just by identifying some of these early points that I mentioned. So something to, take home, study, consider, and then, have that feather in your cap moving forward for the next time this happens. All right, and that's it. Thank you.